One. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to Friday Fix. I am Opal Hope Bennett, the Director of Filmmaker Development at Doc NYC and the festival's Shorts Programmer. We invite you to participate throughout this show. Please introduce yourself in the chat box. Tell us where you're viewing from. If you have questions for our guests, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. This is episode 11 of our series, and up until now, my amazing boss, Tom Powers, has been the host. It's been great to watch, and I'm excited to be able to contribute as we move towards the end for this season. I want to remind you that past episodes of Friday Fix are now available for free on the Doc NYC Fest YouTube channel. We'll put a link in the chat box. So our show is divided into 3 segments, each about 20 minutes. And on today's show, we are discussing all things Oscars. We've got 3 guests. First, we'll be speaking with Tom Oyer, Associate Director of Member Relations and Awards. And he'll speak with us about the Academy's ongoing directives on increasing diversity of membership, as well as their pivot around eligibility rules in light of COVID-19. Next, we'll speak with Carol Dysinger, Director of Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone If You're a Girl. It was the documentary short subject winner this year and the 2019, one of the 2019 Doc NYC Shorts shortlist selections. And our final guest is Patrick Harrison, Director of New York Programs and Member Relations. Patrick will introduce us to some of the educational and membership cultivation activities that the Academy conducts on the East Coast. All right, well, I am gonna bring on Tom Oyer first. So Tom, please come on up. As I said, he's the Membership and Awards Manager at the Academy, where he manages all aspects of documentary and short film categories, including rules, submissions, voting and member engagement, and outreach. Tom is in his 9th or 10th?
Over 10 years.
Over 10, right?
It's okay.
It's
okay. I block it out.
And we're very pleased to welcome him to Friday Fix. So welcome, Tom. So good to have you.
Glad to be here.
So yeah, I know that under Cheryl Isaacs Booth, the Academy's prior president, there was a lot of stated goals around increasing inclusion, and specifically around gender parity and diversification of the membership. So talk to us about those efforts and where you are now in 2020, as we're in this amazing moment where the larger focus of the nation is on this matter.
Right, yeah, sure. Basically, in the wake of Oscar So White and that whole controversy, that's when the Academy really amped up its A2020 initiative, which was the goal was to double the number of women and diverse members in the Academy by the year 2020. It was Academy-wide in all branches. Obviously, I work with the documentary branch and as well as a few other branches as well. But so each branch of the Academy then had its own A2020 subcommittee that then basically we changed the process. I mean, a lot of the times the way the process has been traditionally structured is that current members of a certain branch. So in this case, let's talk about the documentary branch. Current members of the documentary branch can propose new members, that the new other people that they feel should become members of the documentary branch. Right. And that structure has been in place with the Academy for a long time. But when you have a structure in place where only those in the organization already are the ones proposing new members,
right?
It kind of gets, you get it.
For sure.
So the idea is that the whole A2020 overall initiative in all these branches was, let's actually flip it and be proactive and actually look out and see who are these other amazing filmmakers or craftspeople, other people in the entertainment and the film industry that should be members and should belong in our Academy, and let's actually, as having a committee of members within our each branch, recognize those individuals and invite them to membership. So that's really what the process changed internally. And so then from there, we had an A2020 subcommittee that Roger Ross Williams has chaired for the last number of years, and I've loved working with Roger. And really, for Roger, there were a number of things that we really were pushing, but one of his big things that he pushed right away was trying to achieve gender parity. That the doc branch, especially the doc community, there's no way that it should not be an equal,
That's right.
equal.
That's right. I mean, you
No way.
see that, very clearly in the doc community that there's, certainly a lot more representation. Barbara Koppel has, right,
Yeah.
best film Oscars well before it happened on the narrative side of things. So
Right.
yeah.
Right, exactly. So we then had a really concerted effort over a couple of years to really be proactive and help get to that level of gender parity. And we did accomplish that last year in 2019. And then our big push this past year was really to look at international and really work at expanding our membership international, because there's so many amazing documentarians around the world. So this year, if you notice our new class, there's a lot of international folks that are, the overall is 35 countries. So we really have been wanting to really expand our map and our reach of a lot of those filmmakers. So that's been our main 2 points. The doc branch, I mean, we've added over 300 members in just the last 4 years. And so I understand that is a lot very quickly, but
right.
Frankly, my view is it's making up for lost time. The
Yes.
documentary branch wasn't created until 2001. And even then, for many years, for at least that first 10 years, they were only allowed to invite about 10 people a year. So it was constantly keeping it small. And so now that we've had this proactive initiative, we're able to make up for a lot less time. So I understand that for a lot of people, it's probably a little, a lot to see such large classes for documentary, but to me, a lot of these folks should have been in the academy many, many years ago.
Long time ago. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea of making up for lost time where the focus is on representativeness. And to that end, I'm interested to know what feedback you've been hearing from members. I imagine it's probably mixed. The Academy has been known to be a bit of a, maybe somewhat conservative body in the past. Curious to hear what feedback has been. Also curious to know, so this has been internal efforts to Academy membership, but as we know, a lot of the issues, and these are things that that Shobin Isaac spoke to, a lot of the issues that arise in terms of, lack of representation in the kinds of projects that are made occur at the producing level. So I'm curious about any efforts to, from maybe Academy programming or focusing on members who are in that section to kind of bring awareness and expand around being thoughtfully responsive to this matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it means a lot, everyone has a different, people are going to have varying viewpoints on this. I think a lot of it's just really helping people understand how things have changed, because I think, again, when you work with the Academy, I mean, I've been at the Academy for over almost 12 years, probably more than 12 years. But the point is that, it's grown drastically a lot and changed a lot in the last number of years. And so, the Academy means a lot of things to a lot of different people. And I think that's part of the beast, right? That's part of how it works. And I think it was just a larger goal that we wanted the Academy and the documentary branch in particular, but to be more reflective of the broader world of documentary filmmakers and the broader world that we live in. So, I think that's been our overall goal. And again, along all this way, I'm working with the members of the documentary branch executive committee. I'm working with Roger, with Kate Amend and Rory Kennedy, who've been the other amazing documentary governors I've been working with for the last number of years. So working with the three of them has been honestly been a joy. And I think that what I love is that when you work with the documentary branch, the doc branch people get it, and that's the key. That's what I love. So.
It's a special community, and it's a special community that's been trying to figure out how to work in this moment that we're in. For the Academy side of things, let's talk about now your pivot in light of COVID, and this is something directly in line with your work in terms of changing the eligibility rules to make it easier for filmmakers to get their work, considered this year. So can you talk about that and what folks need to know? And then also, when they have questions, where they should contact us. We'll drop that in the chat.
Definitely. So first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and just say the rules page to go to. So it's the Oscars with an S .org/rules. So that is the rules homepage. I always tell people to go there for the most up to date. You know, we have just recently updated it. We as you probably saw, we shifted the Oscars by 2 months, so into late April. So now the entire calendar is shifted. So rather than documentaries having to submit on October 1, it's now December 1. So everything that we had in mind is now completely changed. So you can imagine that it's been a little bit of it's been an interesting year already, and I'm sure it'll continue.
And everything is still in flux.
Everything is still in flux. So what is I saying? I always say process is ongoing.
There we go.
The process is ongoing, and we will continue to monitor and update as needed, right? So I mean, the key thing is that when the theater closures happened in March, right away we're hearing from two different groups of filmmakers. We're hearing from the filmmakers that had planned theatrical already set in March, April, May into June, that we're already planning to do a theatrical release to then be eligible and to qualify. Then the other group of filmmakers, as we're hearing from, are the filmmakers that were planning to premiere at many of the spring festivals. Right. And they were relying on those festivals to build towards momentum, towards either getting distribution and or a future theatrical release later in the calendar year, right? And so the closures really affected both of those groups in different ways. And so what we first wanted to do was make some changes to help alleviate those two key groups, right? So the first change, which was an academy-wide change. So, the way it works is we're always, there's the overall academy with governing all categories and eligibility, then there's the specific rules for each individual offshoot category, as right. You can imagine, and so it gets funny, it gets fun. But the point is that they've ultimately decided that if films had a planned theatrical release but then had a streaming launch, had a broadcast or something like that they could submit to the Academy, show the proof of the planned theatrical, and that the planned theatrical could count towards its eligibility. So okay. We've agreed, we have that in place for docs. When theaters do reopen, but again, when we put this in place, we were like, we'll see. We don't know when that will be. Will it be it's not going to be by late summer, clearly. So when is it going to be? We will see. But the whole intent of that is then we could expand the map to include 6 cities to give filmmakers more options of, and only having to play in one of those 6 cities when theaters do reopen later in the year, because we could see that there might be a backlog of films potentially wanting to qualify with limited theater availability. So we made those changes. Additionally, we expanded our qualifying festival list. So normally our qualifying festival list for doc feature in particular has just been international festivals up until this point, because that was intended as a way for international docs to have a chance to qualify. We then expanded that list to include festivals from the first half of 2020, specifically to help those filmmakers that were relying on a future theatrical by getting momentum from those festivals, that if they've been programmed in 2 or more of these certain festivals, that they can then be eligible. So again, this is all this information is on our rules page that I said. On that rules page is also there's sections for doc feature and doc short, and there's a contact email for our awards office email that will come directly to our team, and we can help. So a lot of times I tell people, like, it's always best to really just give the details of the specific situation. It's hard to give blanket hypothetical answers when it's really about the specifics of each film and what was planned, what was put in place. And the end of the day, like, I just want to reiterate to everyone, is like, the Documentary Branch Executive Committee is the committee I'll be working very closely with on this, along with the doc governors, and they are all doc filmmakers themselves, right? So to know that they're on the side of the filmmakers, no matter what. Understand. So we are going to work with everybody. We're going to figure it out. Anytime there's any sort of special situation, I'm going to be able to bring those situations to the committee to talk through and figure it out. We're going to figure it out. But again, the process is ongoing.
Right.
And I think
you're being responsive, which I think I should hope, goes to giving folks some peace of mind that, you're not kind of sitting there and, eyes closed to what's going on.
Yeah, and I do want to say that obviously, like, we have to see when theaters are going to be able to reopen,
Right.
gauge then, do we need to make changes to our festival list? Do
For
we need
sure.
to make changes to, we'll have to figure out then how we adjust, but we will have to wait and see. So
Okay.
there we
Well,
go.
we've got a few minutes left, so let me turn to the questions that we've received. One from Christine Lamont.
Hi, Christine.
Are there still time restrictions for doc trailers? Rules included any trailer over 10 minutes that was shown publicly could disqualify the film for Academy consideration.
Right. So this is the fun part that we have now, is that we have rules that are written for a time when there was very clear theatrical timeline. So it's the 10% rule, which is the a certain amount of footage that cannot be used online. I would say if you're in a situation, I would say to go ahead and email us and inquire about the specifics of your situation, and we can try to get an answer. I think it is something I want to bring up to certain awards committees on my end about how we navigate that rule now.
Yeah.
At the time when the theaters closed, you just thought, well, maybe it's for a few months, we shall see, and we'll figure it out. But now we're at a position where we need to kind of figure that out. I don't want to say, again, a blanket statement. I can't yet, but it's definitely on my radar that it's something we have to look at and figure out how we move forward. So we will figure it out.
Thank you, Christine. A question from Maddie. Is there a chance that other awards categories like cinematography and editing will also open up to docs? I'm sure you get that one a lot.
Yes. So this is the interesting part. A lot of documentary films are eligible in those categories. I always like to point out that Hoop Dreams was nominated for Best Film Editing. I always have to point that out. The editors nominated Hoop Dreams. But the key is that for editing and cinematography, it is for all films, both narrative, fiction, nonfiction, et cetera, all combined. And so, I think this is one of the hard things, is that a lot of times we have a lot of documentary editors and cinematographers that are in the documentary branch voting in documentary and are not necessarily voting in the crafts branch. So it's part of this larger conversation that needs to happen. I understand it. I've definitely talked to folks about, why could there be more categories? We're at a kind of a maximum of where we're at. But I do think it's an ongoing conversation we need to have about how we can have editors and cinematographers in nonfiction have their voices be heard. So definitely,
and their work recognized. All right, that is our time with Tom. Everyone, give him jazz hands online. And thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to see you. I look forward to rooftop drinks at some point when this is over.
Someday it will happen again.
Yes. It will happen again.
Yes.
All right. Thanks so much.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Okay, next up we have Carol Dysinger, and Carol's film Learning to Skateboard in a War Zone was last year's short documentary winner. We're going to play a trailer.
Rejuvenated Taliban in Afghanistan.
Massive suicide truck bomb.
Increasingly radical, saying around 30 people have lost their lives.
We teach children in poor places and we teach them skateboard. It's safe here for girls to learn. با مخاطر ما خوش هستن
ترس خدا را مردم خوش خوب نیست کسی که مکتب کسی که درس بخواند
بعد از او باز تصمیم آرسی شد باید دیدی
زیاده میخوایم پیلوت شد مکتب چی استاد
right, we are back. Let me get out of this. And we have Carol with us. Hello, Carol.
Hi, Opal. How are you?
So good. Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
It's a I think our last time seeing each other was probably at the festival, right? We were talking with us. No, at Doc NYC when you were.
Oh, yeah. I think so. It's all a blur.
Oh, I'm sure. Last year must have been intense. And then you bring Oscar, and then you gotta go sit at home for COVID. Where is he? Ah, hey.
Shy, very shy. Hasn't been in the world for very long. Came home,
Yes.
lockdown.
Wearing a mask. So it's a real pleasure to have you here to speak with us as a filmmaker who's made features, but won Oscar Gold with short. They're near and dear to my heart, and I know your familiarity with Afghanistan started with the feature film you made, Camp Victory, Afghanistan.
Yeah.
But speak to us about how you came to the story featured in Learning How to Skateboard.
Well, to be honest, it was a commission. But I had been searching, having spent so much time in Afghanistan and having spent so much time in women's rooms, which, where you meet the girls of Afghanistan unleashed. And I always wanted to figure out how to get that spirit on camera, which, of course, the minute you raise a camera, they go to their male gaze position. Mm-hmm. And when Grain came to me with this, I was like, I know exactly how to do this. Because it's something I'd wanted to do for years, but I just couldn't figure out the structure or the form for it. And this was perfect for that.
It's fantastic. And so how long were you shooting? Because it's on a longer short.
40 minutes, yeah.
Right. So was it a shoot closer to a feature length kind of a shoot, or?
No. I mean, the thing is we went we went like 4 times over the course of a year and shot for about 10 days each. But remember, the school day there, since they do half boys and half girls, is only 3 hours long. So, we could not shoot a lot or for very long. So it was a short shoot. There was no thought of making it a feature. I mean, if a movie like this was going to be a feature film, I couldn't make it because it would require an intimacy that I can't garnish, I can't gain. This was really just, I want you to meet these girls the way you would meet them if you came as an American to Afghanistan and walked into Skatistan.
Right.
No context, just like, here they are. Anything deeper than that would have had to have been made by an Afghan woman, no question.
And so you premiered the film, and it started to receive a lot of wonderful reception.
Well, I want to say one thing, Opal. We got turned down a lot. And I won't name names, but we got turned down for months, for many festivals. I mean, Sundance doesn't take long shorts, so I don't.
I was going to say, to be fair, the runtime as a programmer, the runtime is a challenge.
Is daunting, yes. And Tribeca was the first to accept it, and that's when A&E started going, Oscar. So, and then we won, and that meant we didn't have to do a qualifying theatrical thing.
Right. That's right.
That's when things took off. That from the Tribeca win, I didn't think we were going to win. I mean, they kept calling me going, hey, you want to come to the award ceremony? I was like, no, I have some friends from out of town. And finally everybody was freaking out.
When the festival calls you, it means you've won and you need to show up.
I love the movie, but it'd been rejected. I'm a filmmaker. Rejection is my wine.
I understand, and it's tough. As an artist, you put your baby out there. I know. So A&E was attached before.
A&E commissioned the
distribution, and then Lifetime came on later.
When Molly Thompson was there, she through A&E Lifetime commissioned Grain, Orlando von Eisendel's company, because he had made the first Skateistan film in 2010.
Okay.
And so he had a relationship with Skateistan. Skateistan does not let just anybody in there.
Right.
You know, there had to be that private connection, and the much of the work was, you know, and because there were a lot of people in Afghanistan who knew, I mean, I was recommended to them by an Iranian filmmaker who lives in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a lot of work to be able to create that intimacy so that you could meet them as they are and not as they present themselves to a masculine world.
So you win Tribeca, and your team says, "Okay, we're gonna make this go for Oscar gold." So what was that like?
Well, it's kind of a blur. You know, I had a job. I mean, I teach at NYU grad film school.
Yep.
So I was basically commuting. You know, it was shown at Traverse City, then in Savannah, SCAD, and then IDA, and then Doc NYC, and then it just sort of. So I was like on a plane
all the time.
I had to come back and teach. You know,
so that was your job then. It was
that was my job.
Q&A. What about any other kind of campaigning?
Well, Molly Thompson, who by that point had moved to Apple, but I think this movie was very much from her heart. You know, she definitely screamed. She definitely was the note giver and the you know, she wrestled with me about certain aspects that she was right, but I was adamant until I finally realized she was right, which takes a long time. Sorry. But
that's why she's Molly.
That's why she's Molly. But she said a very good thing. She said, "Carol, this is hand-to-hand combat. You don't get a nomination or make the short list by sort of being generic. You know, you need to approach people individually. You need to call people." So they set up a series of screenings, and the best, here's my advice. If this happens to you, make sure where you screen in Los Angeles has valet parking. That's all I'm saying. Wherever you screen in LA, make sure there's valet parking.
That is real talk.
That is real talk, because, I mean, maybe there'll never be traffic in LA again, but I doubt that. It's the big thing. People don't want to come out for shorts.
Yes.
It's short, you know, but we managed to get Tony Hawk involved a little bit, which created some interest. And the screenings were very much, I had to do a lot of individual inviting. I had to do a lot of, you know, reaching out. I had to go to a lot of Academy screenings of other people, sort of like, you know, it's like, hey, I came to yours, you come to mine. You know,
so it's political. It's quite political.
It's very political, and it takes money. I mean, I don't know how anybody could do this without money. You know, I mean, even when you get nominated, you have to. I mean, Tom can correct me on this, but it costs money once you get nominated to create the packages that the Academy sends out to people. Mm-hmm. You know, this all went through Christine, one of the executive producers. Mm-hmm. And she just told me that, but it's like, it's really, it is a campaign. There's no question that it is a campaign. And there were some wonderful films, I thought, you know, but
on the short list,
or right. The long short list.
Long short list. Yeah.
Yeah. And even before that, it's just, I think part of it was for me, you know, I've been in this business for a very, very long time. I have helped enormous amounts of people over my life in looking at cuts and getting people gigs and connecting people. It's just, I'm Italian, you know, it's what I do. So it was, I think there was a certain goodwill towards me.
Yeah.
The other thing, which I think is something we should think about in terms of documentary moving forward, is I just have this feeling that documentary as, you know, a way to reveal to the world wrongs that have been done and people who have been victimized, that job is kind of over for us, in the sense that there's so many more outlets for news. There's so many more ways to find things out. People don't want to go and be depressed. You know, and feel like the world is overwhelmingly bad, you know, and there's forces of great evil which we can't battle except, you know, by texting. You know what I'm saying? It's like what people want to see, and I think is more, you know, what I think people responded to in my movie was the fact that I love these girls.
Right.
I've been going there for 15 years. These girls are tough. They're resilient. Yeah, there's war, but it's like weather to them. They're going to do what they're going to do against huge odds. And I don't think I undermined the difficulty of their lives. I mean, I didn't get into, you know, the details of what might happen to them. I just said, this is where they are now.
Right.
This is what they hope for. And this is the world they're in. You know, she could become an eye doctor, maybe. She could become a teacher, maybe, but maybe not. Certainly not if we don't support them by supporting places like Skateistan and, you know, Doctors Without Borders and non-governmental organizations that actually help people and not, you know, corrupt rich guys who have their money in Dubai.
Who need no more help. Yeah. No, I mean, there's definitely something to be said for the doc that does not make you weep, or if you are weeping, it's a happy weep.
Well, it's just more, I think there's something about, you know, no matter how bad things get, people are brave and people are resilient, you know, and
for sure.
And I just don't, it's just victim stuff I just don't believe it has a place anymore. It's like, you know, here's what you don't know, kind of. And it sucks, but, you know, people are working at it.
Sure. You were sharing with me about the title, which is definitely a mouthful, but was
I got so much. Well, I really think, and this is my personal feeling, it's another reason that I think a lot of people watched it who didn't know me.
Yeah. That
when you are doing a short, your title kind of needs to be your log line. You know, the title is what has to make people want to turn it on. So like, Heaven is a Traffic Jam on the 405 is perfect. You're going, what? And bloom. Because people don't go to the synopsis for a short. They just look at the title, you know. So I originally was going to call it Razatullah takes the half pipe, but then there was no half pipe there, nor could anybody take it. And then I was wanted to call it A Girl's Guide to Skateboarding in Afghanistan, but that was a little too cute. But I always called it Learning to Skateboard in Afghanistan in 5 Easy Steps If You're a Girl. And that was my directing post-it.
Right.
You know, it's like, that's what I'm doing. So here are the steps. Now there are only 4. I don't skateboard, so what do I know? You know, it's like that there would be steps that you would hear the girls talk about being a girl, but they would never talk about things they didn't know about. We would never ask them about things you wouldn't ask them about. It's just them. So, but I really believe that if it's a short, your title has to be your log line. It has to be the thing that gets people to watch, because the synopsis or the log line, they're just not going to go there. It's also longer than everything else on any list.
Well, there you go. All right, we're going to go to questions from the audience. I've got one from Joseph Schroeder. He said, your point about docs that rights the wrong of the world being the past is a great one. I'm curious what you think the future looks like for the form. Do you think we'll see more doc series where we check in with characters year after year?
I wonder. I think it might happen. You know, I think now with the technology that's available and the fact that you have to have access demonstrated before you can really raise a dime, the longitudinal approach is almost inevitable. Unless you're doing a spelling bee or dance contest. You know, it's like the longitudinal, it's just inevitable. And I also think of all the movies I cut in the past years, that would have really been great as a limited series. The stuff I had to take out, just like, it still kills me. You know, whereas if it had just been a 5-part documentary, you would have gotten to see so much and it would have been just as entertaining. Right. You know, there comes a point where you simplify something feature structure is so, I was a screenwriter for years. So,
Yes.
Feature structure is devastatingly precise. You can't, it's difficult to make those kinds of movies. And it means cutting out a lot of the detail, which in a lot of ways is what makes documentaries so wonderful.
It's the gold of the form. It's an interesting point you make, though, about financing having that influence on the type of format. Can you talk a bit more about that? Like,
I can try. I mean, my ability to get my stuff financed is not. I mean, I have a movie I'm trying to finish now called One Bullet that you'd think with my friend here we would have, but it's hard. It's very hard, and
this is what I always hear from filmmakers on the doc side.
It is, and I always say to myself, well, nobody told you to make a movie, so you're not owed this. You got to earn it, and you got to earn it by, showing why, whatever. I don't know how. I'm working on it. So I don't, I'm not. This was a commission, and I like to point out to people that the two films I did not have to raise money for, my student short, which was narrative, and this one, both won Oscars. So maybe you want to finance me from the front because I have a record.
Hey guys.
There you go. But I think I think the financing is very much, the question is what's a commission and what's a sale? What are you make out of love of the project and write 10 million proposals and, finally sell? And what's a commission? And that's what I feel is shifting with branded content and series and whatever. But to his question, I think the future in documentary, it's really it's like become a lot more aesthetic. The demands of the look and the editing and the artistic style have become much greater. You have to have insane access to something impossible to not have good camera work, So it's become more difficult in a way because there's a standard
that has gotten quite high. Yeah. We've got one from Emily. What's your advice for getting the most eyeballs on your short film, especially if the film festivals are going virtual?
I'm not sure because this world is so new. I don't know. I mean, I think if anything, and it depends on any eyeballs or eyeballs that can get you
particular eyeballs.
Particular eyeballs. Any eyeballs you find organizations that are working in that space and ask them to, send a link out or whatever. But
social media campaigns.
Social media, I'm not, not my field, but I think it's really hard. But again, I know what I would do pre-pandemic, but I don't know what I would do now. I just think in a way, every new wave comes from the ashes of a burning business. And, so everybody's got to use their imagination because there's a lot of possibilities out there as you start, stop crying for the past.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I did.
No, I mean, that's fair. There's a lot of needing to, be MacGyver the situation, for lack of a better phrase. We've got one from an anonymous attendee. Do you think there will be a large number of short documentaries detailing COVID-19 and the Black Lives Moment revolution? And how do you feel they will be received by the Academy?
If they're good, I'm sure they'll be welcome. I mean, I think, since it's the doc branch that will see them, they'll be received very well if they're good. I think the hard part is, I can't remember which famous old white guy said it about documentary, but it's in a way, there's what's happening, which is news, and then there's a reflection on what's happened, which puts something deeper into it. And so that to me is the question. I know I've been getting a million emails going, take a shot out your window and send it to us with the music you're listening to. There's a lot of this, people trying to do that kind of thing. I know there's a couple of Wuhan movies being made. I know there's a couple of, things going on. but it's kind of like what Hearts and Minds did to the Vietnam War. There were a lot of Vietnam documentaries, but that was the one that managed to put it in some kind of perspective and sort of stepped away from it to see it better. About Black Lives Matter, I mean, I still say Whose Streets is, you know,
Brilliant.
To me, that's the one. And it's even before all this happened. It's not like, you know, Mike Brown, George Floyd, I mean, Breonna Taylor, it's just, it's not like we haven't seen this movie. It's just, how is it going to be something that keeps the foot in the door and the wedge in the door to keep this door open so it doesn't close again, so somebody else has to die for it to happen again? You know, that to me is the job of the Black Lives Matters movie, to me. But I'm, you know, they wouldn't.
I mean, it won't be
I
one
went to
thing.
protest. They told me that there are vigils for the over 60 crowd tomorrow. You should go to that. I'm like,
No, it won't be one thing, you know. I think it'll be a sustained, multifaceted approach, both in media, you know, and on the ground. So, but with that, we have to close it. That is the end of our segment. It was so great to speak with you, and to meet your guy. And thank you so much for joining us.
Okay. Bye-bye. Nice to see all y'all.
All right, and our final guest is Patrick Harrison, Director of New York Programs and Member Relations. Patrick has been with the Academy for nearly 20 years, and as he likes to say, he has a good idea of where some of the bodies are buried. Patrick oversees the Academy's educational outreach and works out of the New York office. Patrick, welcome to Friday Fix.
Thank you for having me, Opal. Hi, all Doc NYC world, everyone out there, wherever you are. I'm so happy to be here on this Friday afternoon.
It's so good to see you. You look like you're in a issue of Architectural Digest there. That seal, that room is giving me like, you know, celestial vibes here. Yeah.
We got a little light coming in. We always have to have light coming in. No
That's
dark.
Right. That's
light.
Right.
Yes.
So before you and I ever met formally, I remember seeing you in action at the Oscar screening series hosted by the Academy in advance of the awards. And I was just a young, cinephile. So like stoked to be in this space with all these Academy members. And I know that series has grown over the years, and that's just one of, a small slice of the kind of work that you and your team do out of New York. Can you share with us more about, some of the sort of broader New York efforts?
Sure. But before, again, thank you for having me. And, I always have to give my wonderful colleague, Tom Oyer, a shout out.
Yes.
I can listen to him all day. He knows it. He's got it. He's well respected. So hello, Tom and Carol. Your film was just fantastic. And I love that you gave a shout out to Hearts and Minds, because that's what I feel in this time right now. We can legislate equality and everything, but really it's about changing hearts and minds. So I'm glad you brought that film up. So terrific. I've been at the Academy for 20 years. And it's been really great. And part of, my responsibilities are to kind of further the mission of the Academy and expand, member relations, identifying new members and identifying new leaders who could serve on executive committees or boards. So we do that with the various amounts of programming. I have a weekly membership screening series that we do to keep members up to date on new releases that are coming out, working very closely with the distributors to get those films out pre-release. Then we do, various Academy conversations, after those screenings, where filmmakers will come in and talk about, how they created this piece of art. And then we also have a public-facing side where we do a series of public screenings where we take out reintroduce classic cinema to the screen. And we bring in various filmmakers with that, either the director or the writer or the producer, and even, further other crafts like cinematographers and costume designers and production designers, all in an effort to educate the public on how a film is made and various, career paths one can take in the industry.
Yeah.
and we also do some things with youth, have educational programs with youth, and that's where it's really key, because it's all about exposure.
Yes, absolutely.
And we see that a lot of kids, especially kids in underrepresented communities,
For sure.
they don't know how to find a pathway into the industry. I mean, they can all talk about who the actor, writer, and director is, but you know, if you have an eye for costume design and costuming, you know, there's a category for you, there's a place for you in the industry, and there's also an Oscar for you. You know, there's an Oscar in your future. If you like, you know, if you're a person who, you know, sees films and likes to sit in a dark room and edit, there's a place for you to do that.
Right.
So that's another kind of program that we're doing. We call them Careers in Film Summits. And we'll bring various, you know, film professionals in to do a presentation on various career paths people can take. And those are really popular as well. I also do a bi-weekly workshop, working with a couple of organizations in New York to have filmmakers come and talk to young people specifically about their crafts. We've been doing, in the time of COVID, we've had a production designer, an editor, documentary filmmaker, and that was Nadia Hallgren who came and talked to us about.
We love Nadia. We love Nadia. We had her on Friday Fix not too long ago talking about her new Michelle Obama doc.
Yes.
How young are the students that that you're doing these programs with?
We're ranged from high school age, so they could be as young as, you know, freshmen in high school, all the way up to, you know, second, third year college students.
Excellent.
And it's working out really well. We do a specific animation series. You know, in New York, if people don't know, there's only one major animation studio, and that's Blue Sky. So we do a lot of work with Blue Sky Studio, and that's really fascinating. I mean, I'm not a filmmaker. I learned so much about making animated films through them. And we like basically dissect a film. Right. And we go from the story department to the art department to animation department. It's really fascinating.
That's so brilliant.
Filmmakers are quite brilliant.
I like your point about exposure because the film industry just feels so intrinsically tied to the West Coast, specifically to LA. So to have this New York presence, you know, I think is really wonderful for, you know, those budding creatives who have that long-term dream. How long has the New York office been here, and you know, were you involved with helping to kind of craft what the efforts would be, you know, in kind of diffusing the Academy's impact and sharing its resources?
Yeah, it started probably, you know, like I said, I started about 20 years ago, and we had a fairly clear slate. 20 years ago, there was a weekly membership screening, 1. We did an Oscar night party, 2. And there was an Academy tribute to a filmmaker, 3. And the 4th thing that we did was a regional finals of the Student Academy Awards. So there were 4 events, 4 programs that were happening in New York when I started 20 years ago. Now, oh my gosh, we have a lot going on. We have a lot going on.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So as a satellite office, you know, the mothership is in California, and I'm a satellite office in New York, and I have a colleague in London who's doing the same thing. We all work together to kind of create these programs and you know, kind of shift them according to our geography. So I always say there may be certain things that an East Coast group will be interested in that may not be of interest necessarily to the West Coast, and absolutely to a European audience. So that's been kind of fun, and that's where I can kind of, you know, use my own creativity and build my team to say, okay, what's specific about us in New York that we can tweak and play with, all staying under the umbrella of the mothership. And it's been quite exciting, and the response has been very positive in what we're doing here. So it's been fun.
I mean, it's an amazing job. When you say part of your work is identifying prospective new members, like what does that look like? I'm sure we have folks on the call who are interested, right? Who want to, as an artist, find the best way to craft a career that would make them in a good posture for membership. So we
have several programs that kind of address that. Just on a basic, that we have a gold program, it's a gold internship program that we produce every year. We bring in, young college kids to kind of do internships, and we facilitate that internship process for them. There's also the Student Academy Award program that I had mentioned earlier. Right. Where students can submit their thesis films and, have Academy members review them and then, offer prizes. That's another way to find new talent. There's also the Nickel Fellowship in Screenwriting, which is a screenwriting competition that's also looking for, that also aids in many ways to, find new talent. And in New York, we do those programs. Plus, within our branches and within our committees, we encourage the members to help us identify some of those new members. So we'll do that with a cocktail party, a branch mixer. We'll say, hey, bring someone else who is not a member, but someone who might be working in your department. If you're a if you're a makeup artist and a hairstylist, who were your assistants? Who's working on projects with you who are maybe not quite there yet, but they're on their way. So let's bring them in to introduce us. Let's introduce the Academy to some of these young people who are on their way. So when they do have the right credentials and they go through the membership process, we'll already know them.
Right.
And we'll know who they are. We'll know who they are. And once they're in membership, we do our best through membership screenings, our Oscar night party, and various programs, even like this, where we're like, okay, what are your interests? Do you want to serve on an executive committee? How do we get you? How do we get you in front of other members so that you should serve on a committee, volunteer to serve on the Student Academy Award Committee, or serve on the Nickel Fellowship Committee? And so that's another way that we kind of identify talent who can kind of lead and possibly become board members someday.
Right. That's brilliant. It's pretty organic too.
It's a total operation. It's a total operation.
Academy member, so if you're craft, you want to be like, who's got an Oscar on this movie? Let's go to lunch.
Right.
All right, we've got some questions for you. One from, let me see here, Liani Masdorf. Your work sounds amazing. Are New York City and London the only cities you have satellite offices in? How do you choose cities? Do you have any plans to expand?
If I were king, we have the three. We have the Los Angeles is the mothership, obviously, New York satellite, London satellite. I don't really know the history of how those two cities were decided upon. I have a feeling it had to do with concentration of membership.
Just what I was going to say, where there a lot of members live. Yeah.
So obviously Los Angeles is the larger, California's a larger membership, and then New York was the second largest concentration of members, and obviously London was the third. I don't know. I think it just depends on if there's a need. Toronto, maybe.
Yeah, right. Maybe. I mean, that's the biggest North American festival. There's got to be folks there. I mean, but it makes sense. Yeah, based on what is precisely the case.
So yeah, I think it just depends on where the concentration of membership is, and the need. If they feel, because I know with New York, I do know a little bit of that history. I'll say this: there was a New York member by the name of Arthur Manson. If you guys, I don't know how old or young your audience is today, but if you knew a marketing executive named Arthur Manson, he called the current president at the time, who was a gentleman named Richard Kahn, and said, why does Los Angeles get to have all the fun with the screenings and the parties and we want to do something. So Richard Kahn challenged him and said, if you can pull together a committee and organize the New York members,
right,
you can start having screenings. And he did. He pulled together a committee of New York-based members, and they came up with a committee, and they started doing screenings, and it just kind of grew from there.
Okay, Leonie. So, you know, get folks to pull together.
Yeah, good question. Good question.
And then we have one from Abby. Love your educational programs for young people. Wondering any advice for someone making a midlife career change, corporate communications, including video production, to documentary and narrative films, wanting to become active within the Academy?
There are, there is a gold, I'm going to get the name wrong. It's a gold women's fellowship. So if you're a filmmaker, and I think if you're transitioning into filmmaking, there is a program that you can participate in to kind of put your work out there and participate. And then on just a general level, you know, we have a series of screenings and public programming. Show up, come up, support us. We'd love to see you. So I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think that's our time, because I gotta do the farewell. Patrick,
you do the farewell.
So good to see you.
Thank you so much, everyone. So happy to be here today. Thank you.
It's truly a pleasure. All right. So, gosh, that is us. We are at the end of another Friday Fix. I want to thank you all for joining us. I'm going to put up some announcements that need to be made. So let me send you to that screen. So if you want to revisit any portion of today's talk, it'll be available on YouTube by tomorrow. I want to remind you also to start your week with Doc NYC's Monday Memo. It's our weekly newsletter that brings the latest documentary news to your inbox. You can sign up for free at docnyc.net. And I also want to remind you that coming up next week is Firelight Media's weekly show, Beyond Resilience. This week's topic is covering the recent online debate about equity, power, and Black and person of color filmmakers' demands for structural change. The show starts at 2 p.m. And there's a link to register for that. All right, so I want to thank today's guests, Tom Oyer, Carol Dysinger, Patrick Harrison. It was so wonderful to speak with them and to have them join us. And thanks to all of you for joining us. Also thanks to our IFC staff, Asha Phillips, and the Doc NYC team of Dora Dotson, Sarah Moto, Caitlin Boyle, Raphael Nehausen, and of course, Tom Powers. Thank you all so much, and hope to see you next time.